the entertainment highlight of the week.
Red Ray Gun Limited presents
The Benji and Nick Show. Hello.
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 Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Good day.
Good breakfast.
Good tidings we bring.
To you and the king. Oh damn! I've sort of Loch Ness myself there, really, didn't I?
You have.
Well, never mind.
Goodness.
I was enjoying it, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Loch Ness.
It has to have a good in it. Well, there we are. That was the Loch Ness game. It's not about Loch Ness, and it isn't a game.
It isn't, but this is the Benji and Nick Show, the show where we talk about cult TV from the past, TV you might remember, TV
Yes.
you might want to forget. Lots of oldies and goldies. That's us. And What are we
Yes.
discussing today, Nick?
Well, we're actually discussing, and I've just remembered I haven't even sent you the in inverted commas script, but I will send it now. We're discussing Space Precinct, The Fire Within, Part 1. We said we were going to do Parts 1 and 2, but because we didn't get to see it in time, we've just both managed to just do Part 1. I'm just sending you the script. Hold on. Benji and Nick. B and N I've put. Just sending it
Ban.
to you. Better ban. Yeah. But first, I'd just like to say that the Benji and Nick Show is proud to be sponsored by The Village Shop, the online store run by the Unmutual website and Coit Media Limited, your one-stop shop for all things Prisoner, Danger Man and Patrick McGowan, including DVDs, Blu-rays, books, CDs, audio dramas, clothing, photos, homeware and gifts. New items are added weekly. Benji and Nick Show listeners can enjoy a 10% discount on all purchases by using the code LOCHNESS10, LOCHNESS10, capital letters, all one word with no spaces either before or after, evermore. Use that at the checkout. A further donation will also be made to Hope House Children's Hospice at no cost to you. The address is www.theprisoner.co.uk. Do you want to have a quick look at the site, or shall I?
I'm looking on the site right now, actually.
What is there?
Well, I'll tell you one thing you can get your hands on this week is a minifigure number 6 t-shirt, which has got number 6, from the Prisoner, dressed as a Lego. Well, not dressed as a Lego, it's as a Lego figure. You can get that on a t-shirt, which is pretty damn rocking, if you ask me.
It is. That's a very... It's brilliant, actually. And it's $25.99, and you can get a 10% discount on that.
I mean, just be, it's silly not to, really, quite frankly. You'd be a fool not to a fool.
There's an additional code, Good Gravy, that gets you 40% off the book Plays, Spies and Private Eyes. Do you want to find that book?
Yeah, certainly.
Where is it? Plays, what's it? What, Spies and Private Eyes? Playboys, Spies and Private Plies. I can't
French fries.
speak. Oh, yeah. This is a great site, isn't it?
There's lots of lovely cult goodies on there. Yes, you can get Playboy, Spies and Private Eyes at the current price on there, which is $12.99. So you get your discount.
Get 40% off that.
Yeah,
and all you have to do is enter the code at the checkout, Good Gravy, GOODGRAVY, which is a little bit from the Loch Ness game. So there you are, 2 possible codes. I'm not going to bother to look at nicholasbriggs.com because just no one buys anything from it.
Oh.
Bit passive aggressive there.
Yeah, somebody buys something. Come on.
Coming up later, we'll hopefully be talking to Jamie Anderson after we've spoken about Space Precinct, because of course his dad, Jamie Anderson, was the producer, creator of
Jerry Anderson, not Jamie Anderson.
Yes, Jamie's dad, Jamie, he's his own father. He's
a time loop.
Paradox.
A time loop.
Jerry, he created it. Yes, just edit it together, folks, for yourself at home. I'm not going to be doing any editing today. But before that, let's read out your emails sent to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com. Shall I do this first one?
Ooh, yes, please.
Yes. So the subject is The Stranger, and it was sent on the 1st of April. So is it a joke? I don't know. In the year 0617. And it's from Arlo Who? Arlo. Hello. After
Hello.
your podcast where you briefly talked about The Stranger, the new Netflix series, it reminded me that the ABC, that's the Australian Broadcasting Company Corporation, I don't know, has recently restored their 1964 series called The Stranger. It has a different plot to the new one. My goodness, it does. It's about a man who has supposedly forgotten his memory, is found outside the house of a normal family. I wonder what that is. The man is hiding secrets from them and has some kind of hypnotic powers. But will the family find out what he is really up to? Only time will tell. The show is enjoyable thus far. I haven't finished the series yet, and it has some sci-fi elements and really atmospheric and creepy moments like the opening sequence in episode 1. And the good thing is that all the episodes are available on YouTube, so it could make for a good watch and maybe review. P.S. The ABC is the Australian Broadcasting Corporation.
Indeed, and you can get it, on the ABC TV official YouTube.
Yes, thanks, says Arlo. I had a look at it. It's rather good. I mean, it is very much like a sort of... It's of the sort of Doctor Who, old black and white Doctor Who production standards. So Jamie Anderson's just asked if he's got time to make a coffee. I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, I'm just looking through it now. It's gorgeous. A lovely old black and white thing there. Lots of the usual sorts of shot on film, interesting enough. I love
only the opening sequence.
Oh, is it really? Then does it switch straight up?
Oh, totally.
How
totally.
Funny.
Yeah.
How funny.
Oh, then it's very much multi-camera and lots of just single shots for whole scenes with people sort of obscuring other people and the camera trying to edge round to catch them. You can hear the director, or you can almost hear the director in the gallery going, I told them to stand to the left. Oh, they're still in the wrong position. The camera's desperately trying to get round and still their nose is obscured by someone else, you know. Okay.
That looks very good. That's definitely one I might have to watch.
Yeah, we should give it a go. I mean, definitely have a look at it. I did an episode and a half, and then I thought, okay, fed up with this now. It is very much a kids' series. The main characters are children. Although the stranger himself is, of course, because he's strange, he has to have a foreign accent. He is clearly an alien. He has got a weird transmitter device with a sort of curly bit of metal on the end, which he hides under the floorboards.
It all seems very obvious to me. You're an alien! You're an alien! An alien!
An alien.
I am an alien. We got another one here. Subject, a very interesting email subject from Jamie Farquhar, sent on the 29th of the 3rd, the year of our Lord, 2313. Hello, it's me again. Hello, it's you. I'd have another question for you. Which Blake 7 episode story is best for someone who's never watched the show before? The first one, or is there another one that'd show me what it's all about? I would answer that one straight away and say, watch the first one. It's arguably like one of the best ones. It's amazing.
But it's nothing like any of the other ones. So, you know, Blake 7 very quickly became rather camp. And
it did, but it's still a great first episode. Like I feel like you kind of have to see at least the first two to understand what's going on.
That's true.
You know, it sets up a lot of things. Carry on here. It says, funny thing is that I only recently learnt about the show. Before that, I'd only known Paul Darrow from his Doctor Who appearances and from Medieval, a 1998 PlayStation game, which is a game I grew up playing and subsequently one of my favourite games of all time, in which he voiced the evil sorcerer Zarok. Yes,
Zarok!
I remember Medieval. I used to have that on the PlayStation.
Do you remember Zarok then?
I remember Zarok. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's actually a very, very good game, and they've recently restored it for PlayStation PS4 with brand new graphics and stuff. It's really good. It's quite funny. It's about a dead skeleton who's going around a haunted house. It's quite fun.
Do you remember Paul Darrow's voice being in it?
Yeah, I mean, of course, at the time, I wouldn't have known that Paul Darrow was in it because I wouldn't have known who Paul Darrow was. But having seen it since, yeah, Paul Darrow is in it. There's also another really good computer game on the PC called Contradiction. With Paul Darrow.
Contradict you there?
Can I just contradict you? It's really good because it's like an investigation. It's like it's a playable sort of film, And so you have to watch them as they interview certain people, and then you have to listen to what they say and get evidence and work out if they're
actual footage or animation.
Yeah, actual footage.
Actual footage.
Actual footage. So Paul Darrow's in that, and he gives the most Paul Darrow performance. You know, he's horrible in it. Actually, I can recommend that as well if you like your games. You like. It's quite good, and as well the guy, the main character is definitely a Doctor Who fan, because you'll see various Doctor Who things around his house. Yeah,
really?
Yeah, definitely.
The old Dalek.
The old Dalek, a Doctor Who apron, perhaps the old DVD somewhere. Anyway, carrying on with the email, says, "Oh, and thank you so much for featuring my previous email on the podcast. I think you had some great picks, and I agree. It's really hard to pick a least favourite Dalek story. They're all great. By the way, what do you think about the Mission to the Unknown recreation?
He
was in it. As someone born almost 30 years after 1965, I think it was a great way to experience the episode, and, well, a great idea overall. And what was it like working on it, Nick? Did it feel like actually being there in the 60s, making classic Who, or not so much? I'd really be interested to know. Jamie. P.S. Sorry for the lengthy email. Please don't exterminate me. P.P.S. I literally noticed I misspelled Dalek Invasion of Earth right after I sent the previous email. So embarrassing. Sent from Scaro."
Yes, you did take the mickey out of him for saying Dalek Invasion on Earth.
What can I say?
Yeah, you because we never make mistakes. We're perfect here, Jamie.
We are perfect. Yes.
It was great working on it, actually. And Andrew, who directed it, was brilliant. And it was just, I don't know whether it was like working on the show in the 60s, because of course I didn't, so I don't know. Yeah, it was a real special feeling, and so lovely to be invited to do it. And all the students who worked on it, it was all part of their learning experience. And they were lovely people, and I really enjoyed working with them. And I think, as I might have said before, it's the only shoot I've ever been on when I'm about to go that the entire crew and cast all queue up for my autograph. That has never happened before, and I dare say it will never happen again. But that was rather lovely. Yeah, brilliant. I wish we could do something else with them. I think it's a fantastic setup there, and Andrew was so good at sorting it all out, and I was really flattered that he asked me to do it. The next email is from our friend Tom Hodden. This is going to be a corker. It was sent on the 30th of March in the year 1236. Gents, as you may be aware, this month sees the start of an unprecedented exchange programme between reality TV and fictional entities. As such, I'm delighted to confirm your assignments. Mr. Clifford will be given a 3-week job placement with the Scooby Gang, while Thelma is on Loose Women.
It would happen, wouldn't it? Of course.
Mr. Briggs will be assigned to Marineville as one of the drummers who plays whenever the city descends to action stations. Stingray! Please be aware that Zippy and George will be hosting your podcasts in your absence. Wouldn't that be amazing? Yeah.
Love it.
Last month's pilot scheme heralded some success, although Judge Rinder did not fare very well on the mean streets of Megacity 1. Judge Dredd was something of a hit with his uniquely brutal approach to small claims hearings. Yeah, Judge Rinder, what's that programme he does? Is it just called Judge Rinder?
I think it is, some ghastly old telly.
It's not that old, actually. It's
not old. I was just sort of placing it in that pile, the old, ghastly old.
Yes, it's where people go. There's an American. It's an English version of an American show, isn't it? Where someone makes binding judgments on television for people's small claims. I'm falling asleep talking about it. Gordon Ramsay was less help to the FBI than I expected. But Hannibal Lecter certainly seemed to enjoy his tenure on Kitchen Nightmares. Highlights of the coming months will include Cat Weasel on Songs of Praise, the Ghostbusters on Most Haunted, Jeremy Clarkson replacing Mad Max, and Davros on Question Time.
I wonder who Davros voted for.
Yeah. There will be a special edition of Newsnight with Peter Parker, Clark Kent and Sarah Jane Smith offering their journalistic insights into the US elections. For further information, please consult the paperwork you will receive in the next few days. Yours, T. Cotton Hodden. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you. That's what I needed to know. I've always got an affectionate spot for Peter Parker because when I was a kid, my grandparents moved into this block of there's like a sort of block of nice flats, and at the top, the penthouse flat at the top was owned by a Mr. Peter Parker. Wow. And so it used to say it on the list of buzzers, and so but as a kid I thought, I mean, if he really is Spider-Man, then I guess being on the penthouse is probably exactly where Spider-Man would be. You'd be right at the top, so you could leap off and do your jumping around. So for me, I was like, this is actually, feels pretty logical. It must be Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
So
Space Precinct, The Fire Within, Part 1. We'll be joined hopefully shortly by Jamie Anderson, son of Jerry Anderson, who created this. But let's talk about it. This is the first episode of the final two-parter of the one and only series of Space Precinct. When was Space Precinct, if I could say Space Precinct over and over again, Space Precinct, when was it broadcast? Was it the 1990s?
1995.
Wow.
Slap bang in the middle of the 90s.
Crispin Merrill did the theme tune. Jerry Anderson, tell me what you think of it. Had you seen it before?
I saw it years ago, but I can't sort of say that I particularly have any. I've not got a deep knowledge of it, and I've certainly, I've not really watched it back since. And so, sitting down and watching it, I was almost immediately just kind of sucked into it and really enjoyed it. Actually, I think one of the things for me that especially with this episode, is it opens up and you've got great music and really cinematic kind of chanting, all that business. So straight away I felt really into it, and I spent the whole of the episode just in awe of actually how brilliant everything looks, and that the prosthetic masks for all of the aliens in it, despite the fact that obviously the actual aliens themselves look ridiculous, but in terms of the masks, it looks really realistic and really
beautifully done. Yeah,
some of the most convincing in terms of sort of the way that they move prosthetics I've ever seen. I think it's really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to seeing more.
Yes, I remember really not liking it when it was originally on, because the funny thing is, it's sort of like the slight problem with Terrorhawks in that it's not clear who it's made for. Because if I may use perhaps the most bizarre analogy I've ever used, if real life were Lego, then Space Precinct is like the big version of Lego. You know what I mean? So everything's a bit sort of big and chunky and not... there was a real trend since the 1980s, since Alien and Blade Runner, to make science fiction very intricate and detailed and believable and grimy. But this is very much, even though they sort of try and do this is like a sort of kids' big drawing version of it, isn't it? So it has the appearance of something that is quite childlike, but the content isn't. I mean, someone bursts into flames in the first few seconds. Admittedly, it's an alien, which clearly they do because that's not quite as disturbing as seeing a human being burn, which is sort of some kind of species racism there going on. And the constant, the character, I can't remember, but he's played by someone called Youngblood. What's the name of the character, the sidekick, who doesn't turn up until halfway through the episode because he's been conveniently off on holiday because they couldn't think of a role for him in the story?
Officer Jack Haldane?
Oh, yeah. He is like, if I may put it this indelicately, he is like a huge constant erection on the set, isn't he? I mean, his sort of smutty innuendos and constant trying to hit on anything female anywhere near him is so distasteful and so adult as well. You think, well, this can't be for children because of the death stuff but at the same time there's no bad language, and the plot is a bit sort of childlike in its simplicity. So it's weird. I just don't know who it's aimed at. It seems not to know. All that said, like you, I really blooming enjoyed it. It was just great fun, and that is not my recollection of it at all. I certainly didn't make it this far into the series, but and the model work is absolutely
sublime.
Superb. I mean, really so classy. Not a string in sight. Beautiful backdrops. So effortlessly good. You sort of forget. Once you're into that world with all the big chunky sets and obviousness about it, it just fits in perfectly. So you just believe it as a real part of that world, don't you?
Well, I think as well, you get a sort of a feeling that, after years of all the experience on the set to produce this really shows, and after years of kind of seeing BBC models and stuff on, which are great, but this is like another level.
It is.
I mean, and it's little things as well, like for example, like the actual building where the temple is taking place.
Oh, we should say the plot concerns a religious sect called the Pyreans who believe in flame.
The power of the flame.
And someone gets murdered with flame, and our police friends have to investigate it. Sorry, do carry on.
With flame. But on top of this structure, I was amazed by like the sort of little kind of pyrotechnic flames poking. Yeah. But it looks, I don't know if, I assume that it must have been a sizable thing that was built, because the flames looked like actual scale, like not like, do you know what I mean? It looked like gas released flames. But I just thought it was really decent. I mean, the one bugbear for me about Space Precinct in general is I really am not a fan of the actual outfits that they wear. There seems something slightly ridiculous about seeing these aliens walking around in sort of shirts with ties. It just there's just something a little bit. I think that really lowers the quality of what you're watching.
Well, it's like they purposely. It's like they've purposely tried to make it appeal to adults by putting the police in what look like realistic modern day police uniforms.
I think if they'd have gone down a more science fiction route of more kind of
silver boiler suit.
Well, so, I mean, like for example, like the priest in this, the main priest that's an alien, and he's wearing that sort of cultist gown, and when you see that, you just kind of, you're like, oh, that's an alien, he's wearing that outfit. Whereas if he was wearing a dog collar and a blazer and had looked like a vicar, you'd say, why does this alien look ridiculous? Because he's dressed like a village vicar. Like it would have the same appeal as him just wearing a gown with interesting shoulders and yeah,
I know what you mean. Also, that reminded me of the guy who is like their big sort of elder there, the human. What is the name of the actor? He is an actor who's been in many, many productions over the years, and I want to say that this is probably his last appearance on television because he looks pretty old.
Jack Hedley. Who was in For Your Eyes Only, Colditz, Paul Temple.
I mean, he was just in everything. It
was one of his last appearances by the looks of it. Yeah. He was starred in the TV movie of The Ring. He did a DL and Pasco. Was in a mini-series called St. Paul and also one called Character, and then died. So he was acting for about 5 more years, and then... Yeah.
I thought it was very near the end of his career. But yes, he's one of those actors who's been in loads of movies. So it's odd seeing him suddenly turn up in this, sort of kids sci-fi show.
He's still alive, actually. Fair play.
Is he really?
Yeah, apparently, yeah. But there's nothing to say that he's passed away on here.
How old is he then?
89.
Goodness.
So there we go.
He's just a tiny bit younger than my mum.
I thought you were going to say he's a tiny bit younger than me. I thought, you're not 89, Nick.
No, that's right. Oh. So, yeah, I mean, how many exclamation marks are you giving it?
I'll tell you what, I'll give it a 4 out of 5, actually, because I really enjoyed it. Like, I think there are tiny little elements, like as I was saying, which maybe bring it down a notch for me. But as a piece, I loved it, and actually the music is superb. and I'm going to say something controversial here. Oh, he's just come in at the wrong time. My controversial thing is... No, you can come in. Yeah, so Jamie's just joined us.
Hello.
I've actually just given it a 4 out of 5, so it's done very well.
That's
but I
not
would
bad.
say my controversial thing that I would say actually is that the main theme tune isn't as good as the rest of the score in this. Actually, I actually think the other stuff is better.
Well, my joke about the theme tune is that it never gets started. You know, it sounds like it does like, and then it goes da 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 da, and you think this is good. What are we going to do? Da 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 da, and then you think, and now what's the theme tune going to be? And then it goes, you think, oh, that was it. That was the tune.
That
was
is
it?
the theme tune.
I was expecting it to go into da 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 da. You know.
Well, perhaps the two of you could rewrite it. And,
So if you're so clever, slightly passive-aggressive way.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, I think it was Crispin Morell's first big telly gig.
It's amazing. I've grown to love that theme. To be fair,
I think it is good.
Benji was just talking about the incidental music, saying how
It's absolutely fantastic. It's like I was really like the first thing I thought. The second the episode opened, and hearing all the music, I thought, wow, this is really big. Like it lends itself to it gives it absolute Hollywood sort of legitimacy. Like it's better than like I would say it's much better than all like the incidental music in like the bland stuff of the Next Generation, which is just all the same.
Just
apart from the early stuff,
around in
which
the
is a bit more
background,
different. But like this has got more character than just sort of boring background music. Really,
he does bring a scale and class to it. He lifts it, doesn't he? I mean, I would say if you force me to be negative, which I'm not.
Nobody's twisting your arm. You're twisting your own arm there. Let go of your own arm.
I can't help it. I think it's slightly overcomposed. I think he's thrown in the kitchen sink and there's slightly too much of it. But that is often the fault of a less experienced composer. That said, though, I think his instincts are pretty good. It probably needed a lot of that, actually.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times the intent of the script could not be delivered by what they actually had to hand in terms of sets or numbers of people or anything else. There's quite a lot of kind of really dramatic moments. Time to Kill in particular, which is not the one you watched, but the famous time travel one with a cyborg, where there's a moment where this cyborg bursts into a warehouse where an arrest is taking place, and is really the cyborg versus a couple of policemen and a couple of warehouse people hiding, but the music makes it feel like it's an epic battle, between this incredible, powerful cyborg and 100 people. They just aren't there. It's an empty warehouse, but it's all down to the music and a lot of like industrial sounds. He's taken a lot of kind of metal bashes and various samples he's taken from all sorts of places. So
brilliant.
Yeah, no, I love the music in Space Precinct. Theme tune included.
Don't dislike it. Just think it's not as good as everything else.
I'm about to get started. No, I'm not.
What do you give it, Nick? I've given it. I
give it a very warm and fulsome 3 exclamation marks.
Cool. Only 3.
Yeah, because I think it's good. But it's the thing I was talking about, Jamie. I said that if real life were Lego, Space Precinct is like the big kids Lego. It's
Meccano.
Kind of, no, not Meccano.
Lego Technics.
Yeah, Lego Technics.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of big and blocky and slightly overdone. And my question about it is who on earth was it meant for? Who is the audience? Because it's got someone is burnt to death in the first few seconds.
Oh, you saw that one. Right, because they removed a lot of the burning to death for the BBC versions, I believe.
Oh, did they? Yeah, well, I can understand why, because I thought, my God, I mean, is it meant to be? Well, how did your dad pitch it? Was it a kids' TV show or what?
It was supposed to be for a family audience, for older kids and parents, basically. That was the aim. But then as soon as the American financiers got involved, and bear in mind, by this point, he'd been trying to make it for 9 years. And finally these people come along and they're real and they've got the money and they were like, yeah, we've got to bring in some family stuff here, hence the Brogan's awkward family moments, which there were less of towards the end of the series, which is where you were watching, to be fair.
We just watched the first part of the finale.
Yeah, so they just kidified it and they were like, oh, we've got to have a couple of kids in here, and so Brogan's son and daughter were in there, and it was just cringe.
Those bits are rather stapled on.
Yeah, painfully so. But, at that point you're kind of going, oh, okay, fine, we'll make these concessions in order to make it happen, because it's either you make the concessions or it doesn't happen at all. So it kind of ended up being younger and cleaner and less grungy and less Blade Runner than anybody had intended, I think. And
right.
So it does have that in between two stools thing, doesn't it? Where
it does.
It's kind of too clean and a bit sanitized to make it grown up, but also too much electrocution and burning to death to be a kids show.
Yeah, an Officer Erection, who goes around constantly hitting on all the women. I mean,
Haldane.
with his
Hardane.
There's a little bit of
hard on.
It's very, very 90s, that, isn't it? That sort of character.
I don't know why he's not in the first half of this episode. Presumably they just couldn't find a role for him. Was there any backstory behind that?
Not really. I think it was kind of hinting towards an undercover element going on. That's why he's not there.
Well, it's because he
much.
comes back and he is the one who the suspects haven't seen before, so they can put him undercover. Yeah. And he he arrives, they're having a serious briefing about people being burnt to death and murder.
Yeah.
And he comes in and he's there kind of going, why is no one saying hello and welcome back from holiday? I mean, he's just such a meathead, isn't he? And then he is immediately making jokes about consummation, and you just think, wow, this guy has got to be on some HR charge
and feeling hot for somebody, no doubt. Yeah. I'm sure that was a joke in there.
Probably.
Joke
in inverted commas.
Yeah, big joke in inverted commas. It's weird. There was an in between pilot piece they did. So Space Police was the 1980s version with Shane Rimmer as Brogan.
Yeah.
And then they did Space Police Reloaded or something like that, and they got new actors in and shot some new kind of romance scenes, and Chloe Annette was playing Officer Castle.
Chloe Annette.
She was Christine Kachansky in Red Dwarf from season 8 onwards, I think.
And also
something
in
like
Crime
that.
Traveller. Yeah.
In Crime Traveller, most importantly of all. But the romance thing in that was even worse than what you end up seeing in the final series, but always so cringy. And that's another place where they wanted to have a bit of tension, but you can't make it too adult.
Yes.
Also can't make her a harassed character, which really she would be.
Yeah, I mean, it's sex pestery, isn't it? I mean, he is just...
Yeah, definitely on that level.
Totally inappropriate behaviour.
You've accused Anderson Productions of sex pestery in the past, and I see a theme coming up here. Alec Freeman in UFO, for example.
Yes, I mean, he just can't say 3 words to a woman without telling them they've got a nice dress or whatever.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to the spin-off series of Freeman and Haldane.
The two inappropriate guys on
intergalactic sex pests. Yeah, it's a bit weird. No, I mean, all that stuff, I find it a bit cringeworthy. Dad was very keen that there should be a romance element in almost every single show. You've got Troy and Marina and Atlanta and Stingray. You've got Alan and Tintin in Thunderbirds. You've got Scarlet and Destiny in Captain Scarlet. Joe 90 a bit less so, but it would have been really weird then. Father Unwin and Matthew the Gardener in Secret Service.
Not totally. The shed, yes.
Yeah, obviously Freeman.
And anyone he looked at.
Yeah, exactly. Space 1999, plenty of it going on there. Tiger and Mary in Terrorhawks, all the way through to new Captain Scarlet, where there's a heavy focus on Captain Scarlet and Destiny, which is, again, slightly awkward and a bit painful at times.
It's got it sort of included for the sake of, I suppose, having a romance angle then, maybe.
Yeah, it's one of those ever-present things, a bit like the kind of the motherless setup and the kind of hero male pilot leader kind of guy. They're all kind of things that Dad felt were obviously essential parts of the mix. Although I think we probably could have done without it on Space Precinct, to be quite honest. No offence, Rob Youngblood and Simone Bendix, but a bit bleh.
Yeah, I think, it's just, I mean, it probably didn't quite seem quite so tacky in the 1990s, maybe. I don't remember not liking it because of that.
I remember watching it in 1994 when the first episodes were brought home, and I would watch them in Dad's little office and just thinking, eek. I mean, and I was like 9 thinking, eek. And it was over those, the forced romance and the family dynamic things. If you take those out,
your father was such a romantic figure.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I'm trying to think of a romantic thing that he did in his life, but I can't really think of any. Not off the top of my head.
In 3 podcasts time.
I'll do some research and see what I can come up with. But I think if you took out those elements from Space Precinct, it would improve it markedly.
Yes, and it's definitely got a good setup, hasn't it? And a good world. It's interesting. I like it. It's just, and Steve Begg's effects are sublime, aren't they?
It's gorgeous. The whole thing is gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean, then there's some very clever stuff with live action and model work combined. That him and Bill Pearson just produced some beautiful models, and the cityscapes and stuff are just. Oh, they are Blade Runner-esque, I think.
Did Bill Pearson build the models? What was his role? Because I know we sadly lost him recently.
Yeah, he did a lot of model work and quite a lot of the sets and stuff. A lot of detail on cockpits in particular. But, he built a lot of the things. I think he built a lot of the kind of the flying vehicles. Yeah. Lots to Steve Begg's specifications. But funnily enough, Steve is not very proud of his Space Precinct work. He thinks it looks a bit naff now, which I...
Well, because
respectfully disagree with.
There's a childlike chunkiness to some of the design aspects. Once you bought into that, within that world, it's all done beautifully, isn't it? I mean, the models don't wobble. No. The explosions are fantastic. Benji was talking about the flames on the temple, on the Pyrian, whatever they were called, temple. Pyrists temple. That they looked incredibly.
They look like to scale. They look like gas-released flames. It looks.
How did he do that without them looking too big?
I suspect it was done as a separate element and put together in post
and matted on.
Yeah, but again,
that's not detectable.
No, because he was at the front of the technology there. They were using motion control on that show, and it was early days for motion control. Where the camera's movement is programmed, so they can do multiple layers and multiple elements, and the same thing. But,
How are they combining it with just traditional matte techniques or?
Well, with early kind of visual effects and CG stuff, all in standard definition, which is sadly why we'll never see a high definition version of Space Precinct. But they were taking advantage of all the tools, and it was things that Steve had cut his teeth doing on Terrorhawks. They were doing that equivalent kind of motion control stuff on Terrorhawks, except it was just winding back the camera and doing a new pass, pulling mats out and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's lovely, but he always says, "Oh, hate it."
Well, I think some of it, like I was saying to Nick about the prosthetic masks, that you see of the aliens, their faces, it's some of the best effects I've actually seen, because it's one of the first times. Because I often think as well with a lot of these things that. You run the risk of, with a mask and with latex or whatever it's made out of, you run the risk of things not actually looking realistic and like they live and breathe, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the one thing with these is that every element of their faces felt like it was somewhat animated and doing something, and it led me to completely believe. And I was sitting there thinking, wow, I mean, this is it's really impressive.
We did note that the design's a bit ludicrous and over the top, but it was done beautifully, though. That's Neil Gorton, wasn't it, who ended up working on Doctor Who a lot?
It was actually so Richard Gregory was the hero kind of character designer and builder and animatronicist. I don't know if that's the word. I just made it up. But it was him who Dad said, I don't want to have just bits stuck to these characters' faces. They've got to look like complete alien beings, and he did a previous design for the Tarns which had big tall yellow heads with kind of brown ridges on, and they were very, very different, but that was so he could fit in the animatronics for a third eye. But by the time they got to production, They changed the design. In fact, do I have them here? I don't know what I've done with them. Somewhere I've got a banknote from Space Precinct, some
great.
Altorian credits where they've got the original Tarn design on. But Richard was able to put more and more animatronics into the faces and give them brow movements and put quite a fast blink in. It was quite complex for the puppeteers at the side to be animating stuff. And you had people like Christine Glanville, who'd worked as chief puppeteer on Thunderbirds, operating Captain Podley.
Wow.
And they developed this kind of crazy bond where, obviously she'd basically learnt the script. And by the way, she was still in the model shop sculpting new aliens, painting them, punching hair into them, finishing them off, and then going on to set and operating Podley's face.
Wow.
But yeah, it was it was pretty amazing. I see a lot of people being a bit down on the prosthetics and the animatronics, but I'm still a big fan.
Completely
I think
disagree.
they are beautifully done.
And it's the way as well the actors, inside them. There's not this level of like walk around like oh, I've got to be careful, this is going to fall off, or what if it feels very together,
Robust.
Robust is the word.
Yes.
The whole thing feels very together, and it's taken seriously in its own world, and I think that lends it that level of kind of legitimacy.
It's unique. I don't think there's another TV series like it, is there? No. It's got its own unique look and feel. Some of that's good, some of that's not so good, but I just think it's a fantastic achievement, and I'm really pleased to have seen it. And that cliffhanger,
that was dark as well.
I want to fight. Yeah.
So in the version you saw, did Haldane set fire to somebody or not?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So that's the non-BBC version. I just wanted to check.
Right, yeah. He sets fire to her and she falls off the cliff.
Yeah, the BBC version writes a nasty letter, isn't it? That's about it.
Excuse me, madam, I'll have you know. No, in the BBC version, she just falls off the cliff.
Oh, right, so they actually shot two different versions.
Yeah.
Seems funny if she just falls off the cliff when their religion's all about setting people on fire. It's all about flames, isn't it? Yes. Did the BBC ask for a change, or?
Yeah, they demanded. There's another episode.
So they had to go back and reshoot, did they?
This was while things was, they were being sent, early cuts and rushes and bits and pieces, and BBC people would visit, but they were absolutely saying you can't do that. There's one where somebody jams like a crowbar into a junction box,
right,
to turn some lights off during a fight. I can't remember the name of the episode, but they had to reshoot that again, so that it's basically just someone flipping a switch. A lot less dramatic, and they're not taking as much risk. Yes. Again, but it's it kind of gives you an insight into what this show was, where it started, and then how it was gradually bits were stuck on or eaten away or cut out from it, and how it ended up in its final form, which is not really what anybody intended for it to be.
And it's not ideal creative circumstances, is it? This is when productions suffer, when different people are pulling it in different directions and not letting it organically go the way it should.
Yeah. And obviously so many money problems. So many money problems.
The BBC obviously already had a time slot in mind, which is why they were trying to make these amendments.
Yeah, and it was a difficult one because I think it was the first ever time that they'd managed to get two UK broadcasters for the same show on a windowing basis. So Sky One took it first, and then 6 months later the BBC were going to get the terrestrial run. And so I imagine having done a new type of deal, there must have been extra pressure on everybody at the BBC for we've paid for this, and yet we're only getting the second run of it, so this better be good, and we can't have any cock-ups. Yeah. And the people at Sky as well thinking, well, this better make a big old splash because the BBC are going to have it in 6 months' time. So again, two completely different sets of priorities, all having influence on the show.
Yes.
Too many cooks in it, really. Too many cooks.
How was it? A very expensive show? It looks expensive.
It was about $1 million an episode.
So what does that compare to other shows around about the time?
It was the most expensive TV show of its time.
As 20 million Jerry Anderson Productions. 20 episodes.
24,
21,
yes.
24. Oh, 24. Wow. Okay. 20.
Yeah.
So that's 24 million. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and I think I don't know what the exchange rate at the time was, but it was still very expensive. But yes, Thunderbirds and then Space 1999 and then Space Precinct, all the most expensive shows of their type ever made.
Incredible.
Whoopsie.
I'm really quite sort of positive after seeing it and want to see the next part. Is it available? That's on your shop.
It is available, and should we do a special offer for listeners to the Benji and Nick show?
Oh yeah, that's a
rude
good
not
idea.
to, yeah.
Actually, we've only literally just thought of that. That genuinely.
Yeah, okay.
So what's
fantastic.
the offer then? What do they do?
Just at checkout, put in Captain Clifford as your discount code, and you'll get a 15% off the complete series on
Look at
DVD.
that.
How's that?
Captain Clifford.
Captain Clifford, all one word, all caps.
Yeah.
And you'll get. Well, I think that's a great deal, and because it is
All one word, all caps. Yeah.
one word, all caps, because it is a very unique series. And yesterday, I'd finished work for the day, and I thought, all right, I'll round it off by watching this. And so I sat down, and I was pretty tired, and I wasn't in a great mood yesterday either, because I just, it was lockdown. And then I sat down and watched it, and just was absolutely thought, wow, this is really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I found myself, I wasn't checking my phone and doing other things. I was just really happily watching it. So definitely for those out there, give it a go.
Yes, and there's 2 free episodes on the Jerry Anderson YouTube channel, or there's one right now, but there will be another one very soon. So
Will it be part 2 of this?
it is, yes. It's part 1 and part 2 of the Fire
Well,
Within.
for next week we're gonna watch part 2. That's what we're gonna do. That's
Why
our
not,
thing.
Oh, perfect. So we can have more Space Precinct chat next week.
Yes.
Yeah,
Think of
perfect.
something new to say. Actually, what you've got to do is the Terry Gilliam thing that he used to do whenever he was interviewed about movies, and deliberately say different things. So next week, I know actually the BBC had no input on this, and
I was going to go for the John Pertwee method and repeat word for word the exact same story.
Did he go to a hypnotist? I'm sure I read once that he went to a hypnotist to remember what to say, so that when he went and did the events, he could just reel it off.
really.
That's what. I don't know if it's true. I'm sure I read that.
That sounds like a conflation of several stories. John Pertwee did tell the story that when he was doing twice weekly rep, when he was a younger man, that they used to do hypnotism to try and get themselves to remember the lines.
How funny! How
Yeah.
funny!
Which I remember hearing and thinking, God, I wish I could do that. When I was doing just weekly rep, you think, got 4 days to learn a whole play. Anyway, so
Stuff
well,
of
thank you,
nightmares.
Jamie.
Thank you
great
so
pleasure.
much. Yeah, it's lovely to hear the inside info on this one.
No worries. Thank you for watching Space Precinct. In fact, in my cupboard, just down to my right, I've got Officer Romek's hands.
We've also got a head over to your left.
I do have that's a fan sculpted head given to me, which is rather lovely. But
with a Captain Scarlet hat on it.
with Lieutenant Green's hat on. Yes, let's not talk about that. I might take a photo of it and put it on Twitter or something.
It's
but
a franchise clash.
yeah, it is a bit weird. That's a crossover that will never happen. But the Romek hands, because one more and then I'll go away. I promise. But so Orin.
It's quality.
Orin, played by Richard James, who I don't know if you know, but he's the co-host of the Jerry Anderson podcast.
Oh,
Certainly is.
His original partner in that was Officer Beazle. But Tom, I've forgotten his surname, who played Beazle, basically I think didn't like wearing the makeup and was fed up of it and was voiced over, and he just got really peeved and left the show and was replaced by Lou Hirsch as Romek, who was the new partner. But it was all turned around so quickly, and they were like, right, the new guy's here. Pink pages have been done to insert the character and change all the dialogue and all that sort of stuff. Oh no, we haven't finished Lou's new hands, because they were sculpted to fit their hands, and the crayons had joined middle fingers.
Yes, which are very obvious because the middle finger's hugely thick. Yes.
Exactly, yes. Very useful for scratching your forehead. Anyway, so they glued the foam rubber onto the back of these kind of silk mittens. Very, very weird. But they literally had like 2 hours to prepare the hands, and Christine Glanville said, I can't do 2 separate hands in 2 hours. Jamie, you need to paint this other one. And I was sat next to her, 9 years old, recruited to paint Romek's other hand. And so she would say, right, we start with this colour, base coat, okay, that's fine, right, now we'll do a wash, we'll fill in these creases, now we're going to do the age spots. And so we've got these two. I've got both hands. You can tell which one she did and which one I did. But they were used on the show.
Wow,
so the
crazy.
one I painted, I think it was the left hand. Romek's left hand is the one that I did.
Is that why he walks with his left hand behind his back most of the time?
Yes, constantly tucked into his jacket or in a sling or whatever.
Or hanging out of a window in the hope it'll be severed by a passing
Need to get rid of this ropey arm. Anyways, but Richard Gregory kept them for years and then gave them to me about 3 years ago. Which is amazing to see, but it's just so obvious which is the good hand and which is the crap one.
And Richard Gregory, must mention, who became a great friend of yours, didn't he?
Yes, indeed. Yes,
who sadly died relatively recently as well.
Just a year ago. Amazing how that time passes. But yeah, a lovely, talented chap. So many lovely, talented people on that show, and lots of them sadly gone, Christine included. So those hands are like my memory of being sat between Christine and Richard. Very happy childhood memories.
That's a wholesome story, that.
It's lovely, isn't it?
There you go.
All right, well, thanks for joining us, Jamie.
I'll stop dropping wholesome nuggets in your
There's
direction.
no need for us to ask you any stupid questions this week because I think you've acquitted yourself beautifully.
I've danced. The monkey's danced,
The
so
monkey
no
has
further
danced.
questions.
You could dance off. All we're going to do when you go is we're just going to say goodbye. That's all that's going to happen.
Well, do you want to get
We could
close
all
to the
say goodbye
microphone with
to-
us?
yeah, get close to the microphone. Come on.
Okay, I can do that.
Close to the microphone.
Well,
It's time
from
for us
me,
to
it's
say goodbye.
It's goodbye.
And from me, it's goodbye.
And from me and my badly painted hand, I'm waving it. Goodbye.
Pressing stop now. Ka-chunk.